Hey, what is up, everyone? It's Jenny Dildine, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 72, How to Create Momentum. Hey, I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you're preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a returned missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence, ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. I will help you step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. And welcome to November. Here we are, ready or not, November. Here we go. Straight into holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of the fun things. If you are home from your mission, this is probably a really good thing. If you are on your mission right now and it's your first time away from home, it might be kind of challenging. So whatever's happening for you, I'm here for it. I've got you. Thanks for being here, because if you're here, that means you're invested in either your own mental and emotional well-being, or you're invested in the mental and emotional well-being of a missionary. And I love that. I've been having lots of conversations lately about why the mission is so challenging now. And I think there's a lot of components, but one of the biggest things I feel is we're kind of taught our whole lives that we can do hard things. And no one actually never really teaches us how to do hard things. And so I'm so happy you're here. I like to think of this podcast and like my mental mission prep course as the how of doing hard things for your mission. So I will say I am super excited about my course. I don't talk about it that much, but I want you guys to know that I do have a preparing missionary course. And one of the things I was thinking might be super fun is if you know someone getting ready to serve a mission, this would be an amazing Christmas gift for them. They, in just 10 short videos, can get all of the tools that they need to be completely successful out there. And all of those videos you can actually take with you on the mission. And so you can watch them while you're out there as well. So I just think the more tools, the better. I feel like our missionaries are spiritually prepared, but this mental and emotional piece is super, super important. So if you are interested in that, you can just go to jennydildine.com and click on the currently serving missionary page. Or actually, I think you can find it on both the currently serving missionary page and the preparing missionary page. And mental mission prep. It's a game changer. I love it. So today we're going to talk about how to create momentum. And if you're like me, you're feeling like momentum is kind of a buzzword right now, because President Nelson gave a talk on how we can create spiritual momentum in our lives. So I kind of just wanted to break it down. I've kind of noticed some of my clients, what it takes to create that momentum, and for me, what it takes to create that momentum. And we're also going to incorporate some of President Nelson's words. But one thing that I do want to tell you is, as I was creating this podcast, oh my gosh, I was so resistant to it. Like, I don't know why. I was just like having a hard time sitting down, making myself do it. I kind of plan ahead what some of the topics are going to be, and I just couldn't make myself sit down and write an outline. And actually, when I say I don't know why, I do know why. I do know that it's that lower caveman brain that's always trying to protect me from pain and wants to conserve energy and would be happy if it could just eat ice cream and watch Netflix forever in bed. That would be awesome. So I do know that that's why, but it was just interesting and fascinating to watch my brain kind of argue with it. But as soon as I kind of got my brain on board, kind of like, okay, brain, I know you don't want to do this. We're going to sit down and do it anyway. How that momentum started to pick up. And you guys, I not only did one outline, I did like 5 podcast outlines. So it was super fascinating to, as is usually the case when I record a podcast, sometimes I have experiences with it. It was fascinating to watch this concept of momentum and why it happens and how we can generate it. So what is momentum? I actually looked it up, and I know that this is a super cliche thing to do if you're giving like a sacrament meeting talk. Look, I went to the dictionary and looked it up, but I did. And what it said is that momentum is the force or speed of movement. So it can be a physical object like the train picked up momentum or the car picked up momentum, or it can be a course of events. So an event that happens and then another event that happens, and then that momentum starts to pick up. One of the things my family's been doing a lot, because my husband and my sons are super big jazz fans, and actually my daughters-in-law are now pretty well converted as well, is we have been watching how they put this new Utah Jazz team together. And if you don't know anything about basketball, totally fine. But the idea is they used to have these 2 big basketball stars, and now they have all these different pieces. But what you'll find is like they score, but then the momentum picks up and things are going towards the Jazz, bench and towards the Jazz players. And then the other team will kind of gain some momentum. And President Nelson does talk about that, especially in sports. And so momentum then is like that series of events. A couple of the words that kind of came to my mind were little pieces of the word momentum, like moments, okay, or momentous. And so I was thinking of momentum could be a series of moments or things that happen that pick up either our emotion or our energy and get us moving a little bit more quickly towards what we want, or momentous, meaning it has a big impact. So we start to accumulate more momentum when we have more momentous occasions that make an impact on the outcome of what's about to happen. So if we're talking about spiritual momentum, what President Nelson kind of talks about, right, is that there's a lot of things that we can do to increase our spiritual momentum. Those would include moments, and those would also include maybe things that were more momentous, meaning they have a bigger impact. So we can increase our spiritual momentum, and you can totally go listen to his talk, the one he gave in April 2022, about the power of spiritual momentum. But again, it's this idea that these things, when we do them, increase our ability to feel the Spirit, increase the speed at which we can access the Spirit, and move towards things of a more spiritual nature. So when I think about this and how we create spiritual momentum and increase those moments, it's going to be some of our typical things. And he talks about staying on the covenant path and some of those things, and healing relationships. I won't be able to quote them all, so you can totally go back and read the talk. But what it made me think of is if we're creating spiritual momentum, we're actually creating more fruits of the Spirit. And I like to think of the fruits of the Spirit as things that make us feel more open and more motivated. And so some of these might be we're feeling compassion, love, acceptance, surrender, peace, and contentment. So if we're going to create more momentum, we got to start thinking thoughts more often that create these emotions, if we're talking about spiritual momentum. But I would argue that anytime momentum is created, that like forward surge of energy and growth and transformation, it will usually come from one of these more open emotions. President Nelson said in that talk, he said, many actions can ignite positive spiritual momentum. So he said, obedience, love, humility, service, and gratitude are but a few. So remember, your emotions, when I teach on this podcast, are like gas in a car. So one fuel, if we're frustrated, is going to take us one place. And another fuel, maybe one of these like love and humility, gratitude, are going to take us another place. So if we have the momentum of gratitude, of love, of humility, if that's the fuel driving us, this idea of momentum tells us that it's going to get us there more quickly to where we want to go and more efficiently. So what about obeying the rules? Here's what's sort of true is obeying the rules and being obedient for some people is going to create comfort, peace, and some of those, fruits of the Spirit. For some people, it might create resentment. So I think it's particularly interesting to pay attention to what creates momentum in you. Now remember, those emotions aren't created by the thing itself. Those emotions, when we're obeying, are created because of the thoughts we're able to think. So when we're being obedient, it definitely makes it easier for most of us to think the thoughts we want to think. Now, what about service? He mentioned service. Okay, we know because of youth activities that occur in the church, right, that service act could create gratitude and love, but it also could create frustration and resentment, just depending on where the head is of the person who is doing the service. It might also create an emotion of obligation. Again, because the action itself of doing the thing doesn't create the feeling. Our thoughts do. So I totally am on board that when we're serving, it makes it easier for us to think the thoughts we want to think. Thoughts like, I'm doing a good job. What I'm doing is important. Other people and their lives are important too. That is momentum. So when we are obeying, it can make it easier for us to think the thoughts we want to think, like I'm doing a good job. I'm showing up as the kind of person I want to be. But those things themselves maybe don't create momentum. Our thoughts about the things do. What I've been thinking about with momentum is how, as humans, we sort of want to have a constant flow of momentum. And in fact, missionaries particularly, and maybe some returned missionaries, feel like if they're not in a flow of momentum, that it's a problem. But I've been thinking a lot about the waves of the ocean. So often we're going to hit a point where we are thinking the thoughts we want to think that create those fruits of the Spirit that cause that momentum, that motivation, that growth, and we're going to get on a wave. Picture like a surfer, and we're going to ride that wave as long as we can. That's how I picture momentum. Like we hop on that wave, and then it's going to move more quickly towards the shore. But what also happens once we finish riding that wave is that wave kind of goes underneath and pulls back out to the sea. Okay? So I want you to think of momentum not as something that we're going to try to always have, but something that actually ebbs and flows because you're a human. So we're not always going to be able to feel motivated, compassion, love, acceptance, surrender, peace, or humility, or love, or even gratitude. But when we're on the crest of that wave, when we're surfing that wave, I say ride it as long as you can. So what do we do when we aren't in the flow of the wave? What do we do if we're in that ebb of the wave and there's some stuff that we got to get done? I had this client I was talking to the other day, and she was, had missed an assignment or something because she went hiking, and she's like, I got to make up that assignment because I missed it, and I'm just having a hard time kind of making myself do it. So in this moment, her brain was kind of online. She was in the ebb, right, of a wave. And she then was wanting to get this assignment done. So what did we talk about? I said, we just got to start with one step. So you can kind of just show your brain, we're not going to do the whole paper. We're just going to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil at this specific time, and I'm going to write for 5 minutes. So I want you guys to think about how you could apply this to something that you want to create momentum for. Okay? Whatever that is in your life, whether it's like going to the gym or whether it's like kind of forcing yourself to get out the door in the morning, if you're a missionary, whatever it is, I want you to say, I am going to do that thing at this specific time, and I'm just going to do it for 5 minutes, okay? Now, our brains, when we go and we sit down to do that thing, and this is what I told this client of mine, I said, your brain is going to be mad that we're actually trying to pull it along. So think about what it's like when you're in a wave and that ebb goes out to the ocean, how hard it is to like stay standing or to move forward. It's super hard, and your brain is super convincing. So what's going to happen is you can just plan on when you sit down to write that paper, your brain's going to go, I don't want to, we can't do this, this is too hard. And if we can just slowly bring our brain along, kind of the vision I had was like we have sort of like a little wagon that you used to get pulled in when you were a little kid. Our little brain's in there, our little toddler brain. And we're like, come on, brain, it's okay. We're just going to write for 5 minutes. We just pull it along, okay? And slowly what we find is that our thinking starts to shift. And this is kind of what I figured out about momentum, is our thinking shifts, which then allows our emotions to shift. So if we can be kind, if we can be compassionate, if we can kind of be like, okay, brain, I know this feels super hard. We're doing it anyway. Come on. We're just going to go. We're going to sit down. We're going to do it for 5 minutes. Our brain will start to get on board. What will happen is our brains will start to shift the way it's seeing things, and we'll start to get little wins like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. Like, look at all the aha moments I'm having. Of course, I know how to write this paper. And we start to have thoughts like, I'm actually good at writing papers. But we kind of have to kind of get through the ebb and then ride the wave. Eventually, your brain, if we just kind of go for it and kind of bring our brain along in a kind way, our brain will get on board and start to ride that wave with us. Now, I want you to notice that if you're in an ebb where like the water's going out and you're just like, I don't want to get out of bed today. I just don't want to, go to my class, or I don't want to get out there and teach this lesson. When we think something is wrong with me, that creates the opposite of momentum. It creates the opposite feelings that are useful to drive your car. It creates the wrong fuel. And I don't want to say wrong because no feelings are wrong, but it doesn't create momentum, those emotions that are going to allow us to kind of come up onto that wave and then ride it. Now, why does momentum ebb and flow? It is, again, just because of that lower brain. Your lower brain is never going to want to do anything, ever. So there's that. The other thing I want you to maybe consider is that sometimes we do need rest. I love thinking about how Heavenly Father puts stuff in nature and in our world to remind us that there is an ebb and flow. There has to be. Without the ebb of the wave, there would be no flow. There would be no crest. There would be no momentum. So if you're in an ebb, I want you to just consider, maybe I do need some rest. Maybe this time to pause is for me. The other thing I want to remind you of is that we need to expect that the energy or the momentum or those emotions that feel really good and kind of propel us forward, they are going to swing the other way sometimes. In fact, it happens often. Remember, we've got that higher brain and that lower brain. And so, of course, that lower brain sometimes is going to win out, or sometimes we're going to need to rest, and then the ebb's going to come in. And that momentum is going to swing the other way. And I don't want you to judge yourself for that or think something's wrong with you. That's called being a human. So one of the things I love most for me, and you can take this or leave this, is when I'm in that kind of lower energy, things don't seem to be flowing, I'm not feeling as motivated to do stuff, I just know for certain, and this is something I tell myself, oh, the momentum's going to come back around. It's totally going to come back around. And if I'm kind to myself and kind to my brain, we're going to be right back surfing on top of that wave again. And then I also don't fool myself into thinking that I'm never going to come back down. When I'm riding that wave, I'm sort of like, this is awesome. I feel so motivated to teach and to share and to put myself out there. And it feels really good. And I'm in such a flow. And I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can, because I know inevitably we're going to circle back around. Your momentum is like an ebb and flow. And it's totally fine. It was designed that way. And it's amazing. And so we can just love all of it. The other day I got on with a client, and he had been feeling so good. He had been full of momentum. His thoughts were like thoughts he loved thinking. His emotions were emotions that he loved feeling. And he was just like, that feeds on itself and builds and builds and builds. And he was doing great and thinking positive thoughts about himself and positive thoughts about his past. And I don't even like using the word positive because they're all just thoughts, but thoughts that felt good to him, thoughts and emotions that he liked. And I was like, awesome, he's doing amazing, and that's so great. And in my mind, I just kind of know, though, that life circles back around because of that ebb and flow, like the wave. And he got on the call, and he's like, I'm so frustrated. I had been feeling so good about myself, and I hadn't been dwelling on the past at all, and I haven't been feeling guilty or sad. But this last week, he told me, it all came back. And I just said to him, I said, yeah, of course. Of course it came back, and it's totally fine. You're in an ebb right now. You were in the flow of that wave. You were surfing that wave for a long time, and that's an amazing place to be. And I'm so glad you were there. And now your brain's just a little more active. It's just kind of trying to point out all the things again. I told him, we don't need to be mad about this at all. In fact, when we're mad at it and we think something's wrong, we lose momentum. We lose the ability to get back up on that wave. And so I told him, let's just observe it. What does it feel like to be in the ebb right now? And how can we be there for ourselves while we are? I sort of was thinking that we can just observe the ebb and flow in our own lives with interest, with curiosity, with love and compassion. Instead of getting churned up in the ocean and trying to stand up and move and surf when the waves are crashing in, we don't have to get churned up in the ocean. Has anyone ever had this where all of a sudden you just like get pummeled, right? And there's sand everywhere in places you didn't even know you could have sand, right? Instead of getting pummeled by the ocean and thinking it should be different and there shouldn't be an ebb and how come I can't get back up on that wave, we can just observe the wave. I had this image of like my dad, he was a dentist for a lot of years, and he had like this one little shelf in his office upstairs that wasn't like where the operatories were. And he had like kind of all these cool like gadgets. And he had this little wave machine. So maybe you can picture what I'm talking about. There's like two different kinds of liquid in there so that if you kind of, it's like long and thin, not super thin, but long enough to where you can tip it to sort of one side and you can watch like the purple liquid like turn into a wave. And then you can kind of tip it the other way and you can watch the wave go and ebb and flow. And so this is what we can do for ourselves, is we can just sort of take the wave and we can observe it like, I guess I'm in an ebb right now. What do I need? How can I take care of myself during this? Nothing's wrong. And then also, like, I can't wait till I'm in a flow again. That's going to be fun when I'm riding that wave, when I'm surfing again. Okay? And then when we're in the flow, when we're in like that zone, when we're in momentum, when that's all created, those emotions and those thoughts are lined up and feel really good, again, just observe it and be like, I love this. This feels so fun. But I know because I'm human, things are going to circle back around. So I hope this helps you, this idea of creating momentum, how you can create more momentum. We just got to be kind to that lower brain. Bring it along, and then your thoughts and your feelings will start to gain momentum and head the direction you want to head. Okay? And then in the meantime, when you're in an ebb, so much love, so much compassion, just observe it. All right? Everyone have the most amazing week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. We will talk to you next time. Serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can present a unique set of challenges. And many of those challenges you might not even see coming. So you're going to want a unique set of solutions. It's easier than you think to overcome worry and anxiety, serve the successful mission you've always dreamed of, and navigate your post-mission experience with confidence. That is why I created some amazing free goodies that I'm sharing in my show notes. Maybe you'll want to grab the free training for preparing missionaries, my video course for RMs, or maybe you and I should hop on a free strategy call. If you're ready to take your preparedness to serve or your preparedness to come home to the next level, then go grab one of those freebies. And in the meantime, no matter which part of the mission experience you are involved in, just know that Jenny, the LDS mission coach, is thinking about you every single day.